Welcome to the Headset webinar series. We're 2 minutes from getting started as our guests file into our virtual room. Everybody get comfortable. We'll be getting started shortly. Welcome to the November edition of the Headset webinar series. We're going to get started in 1 minute.
Starting to get questions on this side is really important. I can use some factors that I need to have 5K of these or Q level. And I think if we get that going, then.
All right, welcome again to the November edition of the Headset webinar series. Here at Headset, our mission is to help businesses easily understand the cannabis industry through data analytics and market intelligence, enabling them to make better informed decisions, unlock success, and push the industry forward. One bit of housekeeping before we get started. Please post your questions in the questions section in Zoom. We'll save some time after the presentation to go over as many as we can, and we'll also have several ways to reach us when we're finished. Today's topic is seasonality and demand planning. And let's see here. There we go. Our word about Headset there. And our panelists today are Liz Connors, our Director of Analytics. Hi, Liz.
Hi, Steve. Happy to be here today.
All right. We also have Evan Jones, our Data Analyst.
Hey there.
And Cooper Ashley.
Hi, Steve.
And Liz, why don't you go ahead and take it away for us?
Absolutely, Steve. Happy to. All right. Well, hi, everyone. Today we're going to discuss demand planning. For those that are unfamiliar with the term, demand planning just means using historical sales data related to consumer demand. In this case, we're mostly going to be looking at sales volumes. Basically, we look at sales trends to help us determine how to plan for upcoming demand based on historical events. Demand planning can include many different types of analysis. For example, in the rec cannabis market, we see top line sales growth month over month. So planning for the general market growth is easy to see. However, demand for products can change by season, day of the week, and even time of the day. This data can be used all over the business to inform decisions. Let me give a few examples of how you can use demand planning to better inform the things that you do each day. A retailer may use this data to make sure they have the right products in stock and staff on hand, given changes in sales patterns. A procurement manager at a producer or manufacturer may use this data to make sure their production schedules allow for increases in demand around the holidays. A logistics analyst may use this data to decide the optimal day for deliveries, including being sure that they restock on days that are most critical to their sales. A sales or brand manager at a producer or manufacturer may use this data to decide when to hold vendor days or discount products. For instance, knowing if your consumers come in late on the evenings on weekends or early in the mornings on weekdays gives you a better idea of when to get your products in front of the right people. Finally, financial analysts could use this data to better forecast their sales and budget their costs by understanding when sales spikes will occur and when products see occasional sales dips due to seasonality. Spoiler alert, here in Washington, hot chocolate does much better in the winter than in the summer. I bet you could have guessed that though, Steve, huh?
You bet.
Absolutely. Another way financial analysts could use this data is to better forecast if they will meet their sales targets. For instance, in December, which we're going to look at a lot today, we see that the week before Christmas makes up a much larger portion of December's sales than a typical third week of the month. So if you're planning for your sales and you see that in the first 2 weeks of December, you're slightly under your target, that might not be anything to worry about, knowing that the third week has such large sales increases. So with all that in mind, let's do some demand planning analysis. Today, what we're going to do is look through 3 areas of demand planning. So all those use cases I talked about are great ways for business managers to use data to drive their daily decisions. And a few of those that we're going to look at today are by examining top-line sales trends for seasonal patterns, and then we're going to dive deeper into week-by-week trends. And I want to start out by telling you I'm super excited about this. Everything you're going to see today is analysis we did with our new demand planning dashboards and insights, which will be available before the end of the year. So if you're intrigued by anything that you see today and want to do a similar analysis for yourself, reach out to our sales or customer success staff to get more information. Steve, you're one of those customer success people, huh?
That's right. And I'll show that slide at the very end, so you'll have 3 different ways to get a hold of us.
Great. So back to today. Today we are going to go through some general trends in both Colorado and Washington, and then we're going to dig a little deeper into edibles, and finally look at some week-by-week trends. After that, I'll hand off to Evan, who's going to get super granular with the data and give us an idea of the days of the week and even hours of the day that we see sales happening. Evan, this analysis should help us better understand when our customers are in the store, right?
That's right, Liz.
Great. And then finally, we're going to close out with Cooper, who's going to take us through some holiday analysis. We'll both be looking at that upcoming holiday season, as well as everybody's favorite holiday. What's that, Cooper?
420.
Excellent. So that's our plan for today. Let's get started. Today we're going to start by looking at the sales trends in both Washington and Colorado. These are 2 of the more mature markets and give us a good picture of how markets develop over time. So we could be doing this in any of the markets we have insights in. We could have done this for California or Nevada or even Alberta. But today we're going to keep it just to these 2 markets. So here we see that sales totals in each state by month, with that light blue line on top being Colorado and the darker blue line on the bottom being Washington. The first trend we notice is that sales are increasing over time. And if we're planning on forecasting demand, perhaps the first number we would want to use is the linear growth trend between the 2 points. So I've put that linear line there up on the board for you. So we could use the 2 endpoints, or really any 2 points on the line for that matter. But if we look at the linear growth trends, we would see that sales grew by, on average, by about 1.76 million per month. So here what we're doing is we're looking at the difference between the ending sales and the beginning sales, as well as the fact that there are 34 months in this graph that I have. There we go. There's our 1.8 million. All right. So we could even get super fancy with these numbers, and we could calculate the compound monthly growth rate, which is the average rate at which each month grows over the prior period. If we did that calculation, which I won't make you sit through today, you can thank me later, we would see that that compound monthly growth rate is about 1.7%. So what that means is we expect each month to be about 1.7% higher than the month before it in Colorado. Now we know that sales are generally growing, or growing at that 1.7% month over month, but we can see that growth isn't perfectly linear. We see some months where the sales are slightly lower or slightly higher, so they're either above or below that orange line I drew. And we probably want to take into account some of those nuances when planning for our demand. So let's clean that slide up just a little bit. There we go. Now we can see that orange line better. The big thing that stands out to me when we think about the nonlinear demand trend is the summer months. Summer months tend to see larger sales increases than other months. We can tell because they are more often above that linear trend I pointed out. In fact, this trend tends to be relatively stable over the last 3 summers. So I think it's probably pretty fair to predict that unless something unforeseen happens next year, hopefully the sun doesn't burn out, we can plan for the summer months to see sales increases in 2020 as well. So if I were planning how much product to either stock in my store or to produce, I think this would be a good start. But what I might want to do is normalize for some of this upward growth and look at how each month varies. A great way to do that is to look at month-over-month growth rates. Month-over-month growth rates simply mean comparing the sales in the current month to the sales of the prior month. And this type of analysis helps to normalize for strong top-line growth trends. Here we're looking at the month-over-month growth rates for each market. Let's again point out those summer months. Here we can see the trends stick out, where the sales growth in the summer months looks especially true in Colorado, but the trend is also there in Washington as well. Looking at the month-over-month growth rates, we can see that if we were a retailer, we would need to be ready to support higher summertime demand, both by having more staff on hand and by making sure our orders are timely and correct. If you were ordering stock based on the prior month's sales, we could find ourselves running low on critical items. If we were looking at this graph as a producer, I think this graph tells me I better have enough product ready to ship in the summertime. Looking at sales growth, perhaps using that 1.7% average that I used before, could leave me shorting orders in the critical summer months. So while this view gives me a better way to analyze data than simply looking at the total growth, sales growth, or compound monthly growth rate, there is still a bit more normalization I would like to do. And that has to do with these peaks you see right here. Those peaks are in March. When we think about the month-over-month sales growth, one of the drivers in total monthly sales is the number of days in the month. It's as simple as that. March, with its 31 days, has 10% more days than the average February. Now, Steve, don't go pointing out leap years. That's not average.
Okay.
So much of the growth, at least in March over February, is driven by the calendar rather than by changing consumer demand. So we can take this normalization a step further by looking at the growth rate, the month-over-month growth rate, in terms of average daily sales. While this data looks messy at first, let's go back to just those summer months. There we go, there's the messy data. Now let's look at those summer months.
Yeah.
Perfect. So here I've highlighted the summer months for you, and we see that even after normalizing for the number of days in the month, that summer months mean increased demand. In fact, we see that June tends to see average daily sales that are about 10% higher than May in Colorado and between 4 and 6% higher in Washington. I think this data is a great way to determine how much product to make. Stocking out in those summer months could really hamper your growth. At the same time, if you're not sure how much demand is coming up and you carry a really large inventory to satisfy demand, you could have too much of your working capital tied up in inventory. So getting that kind of perfect Goldilocks spot of inventory can be pretty difficult. Here are a few other areas on the graph I want to point out. While we don't have time to dig into every single season, I want to look into the late fall and summer as those months are quickly coming upon us. Great. There we go. All right, so here I've highlighted September through January. And so what I want us to review here is the month of December. So that's that first arrow I've put on the graph just there. Here we see that rec cannabis dispensaries, like most retail outlets, see sales increases in the month of December. This holiday sales boost is common as people stock up for holiday parties and gift giving. I love seeing that cannabis is no exception to this trend, whether it's getting some chocolates for mom as a nice holiday present or bringing some treats to a holiday party to make the lighting of the Christmas tree or the menorah just a little bit more sparkly. It looks like consumers are stopping in and stocking up in the month of December. Now, I can't mention that December sales rush without the inevitable January sales hangover. Here again, we see that cannabis is no exception, with sales decreases in January each year as well. Let's go back to that sales trend of December. And what I want to do now is dig a little bit deeper. And I'm going to start by focusing us just on Washington. So we're going to dig deeper into the categories, but narrow our field to Washington. This is the same data you were looking at before. I've just highlighted those December months for you. So to dig a little deeper into this category, let's look at how this plays out with edibles. Perfect. So what we saw before was that in Washington, on average, December sales were 4.7% higher in December of 2017 than in November. And in 2018, that was 1.3% higher. However, for edibles, so edibles are that darker area above, we see that edibles were about 15% higher in December of 2018 than they were in November, and 8% higher in 2018. So it seems that edibles are either popular as gifts or party treats, or maybe even a way to discreetly take the edge off when dealing with family. Whatever it is, it seems that edibles stand out above the rest of the market and have even more of a holiday sales boost. So let's look a little deeper into edibles here. Here I'm calling out December growth for a few of the edible segments. This is the same numbers you were looking at before, just for a few of those segments. At Headset, we break all our products into categories and then further down into segments or subcategories. While Edibles has 11 segments, I've chosen to highlight only a few of those here. These are the ones that are particularly affected by a holiday sales boost. So all of these show a pretty substantial increase in average daily sales in the month of December. Again, here what we're looking at is those average daily sales, and that sales increase December over the prior November. What I particularly want to call out is chocolates. It's one of the largest segments and appears to do particularly well in December. My hypothesis is this whole time has been that sales increases in December are mostly due to either gift giving or party going. But to further confirm this, I want to look into the week-by-week sales trends. So this is where I'll get just a little more granular with the data and go week by week. Here we see that the week-by-week sales spikes in December mostly occur in the week just before Christmas. In 2018, that was the week of 12/17 to 12/23. Which saw a 31% increase in sales over the prior week. So now I'm happy because this seems to confirm my thought that while much of the growth in the holidays was due to holiday purchases, but more than that, now I have the data that I can use as a retailer to better predict what's happening in my shops the week before Christmas. I can be sure I have enough chocolates on hand to satisfy demand. If I'm a producer, now I can plan for how much to have available so that I ship the right amount of products. It certainly would be a big risk to shorten order that week right before Christmas time. I've spent a lot of time looking at these larger, more macro trends, but let's dig a little deeper and get even more granular into these trends. And to understand that, let's send it over to Evan, who's going to look at not just week by week, but getting down into that day by day and even hour.
They're all like chatting with each
Ready for
other.
Evan?
Yeah, thanks, Liz. And so what we looked at before, we were looking at
Yeah, you can see the people chatting.
I want to look at.
It's like, hey, Ian, can connect? Like they just start off with, hey guys.
But what's going on in the
So it's like
when do we need to make sure that we have stock in, or for a producer that we're shipping we reschedule our vendor days? So let's go ahead and get started. Keeping with our light blue, purple color theme, we're actually going to start off by looking at over the course of a normal week, what does the percent of total market sales look like? And so starting off on Monday, we see slow increase in the percent of sales, and then right into the weekend, Friday, people getting off work, starting their weekend, we see a big increase going down through the weekend and returning to that normal week. So if we compare that to the percent of sales for chocolate, we can definitely see a difference in the trend. Throughout the week, people aren't going into shops buying chocolate, but as we go into the weekend, the percent of total chocolate sales actually peaks above the total market. So even on Saturdays, we're seeing an increased demand in chocolate in our retail stores.
So Evan, if I'm looking at this right, I think that if I'm reading this correctly, it seems that about 33% of chocolate sales occur just on Friday and Saturday.
Yeah, that's when you want to go in the store and get your chocolate.
Excellent. And I'm much more likely to see people purchasing chocolates that day than other things, correct?
Right.
Got it.
Yeah, and so we see this trend throughout the week, but how does this look if we're looking inside of a store, inside of a normal day? What does that look like? Are people more likely to come in the morning, in the afternoons? So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Starting off with the total market throughout the day, it looks like, of course, early in the morning, you don't have a ton of people running through the door. And as we start to get to the afternoon, people getting off work, you see people starting to come into the cannabis store purchasing, hitting our peak and going off into the evening. And let's compare that to chocolate sales, where we actually see that hard and fast rule. After lunch, people are buying their chocolate a little bit early, want a little extra treat. I am a chocolate fiend. We just had a chocolate holiday, so you're seeing a lot of people buying chocolate. And as we hit that, going right into that 5, 6 o'clock in the afternoon, it seems like that starts to meet the demand that we're seeing in the total market, and then it dips below. So you're seeing chocolate sales are more likely to happen in the early afternoon, right before the peak. And in the evening, less likely.
So Evan, it looks like it's a lot of Friday, Saturdays, and a bit more early mornings. Am I putting those together correctly?
Yeah, unless you're me buying them around 10 o'clock, but I'm probably that small percentage right there. So we looked at this by day of week, and we looked at this by hour, but let's look at a full week and the hours in it. What we're going to do is actually combine what we've been looking at before with total market and chocolate sales. So what we have here is actually a graph of each of the days of our week and the hours, and we're doing an index here. And all that is we take the percent of our chocolate sales and we divide that by the total market. So the areas that are in the deep dark green, that's when sales are more likely towards chocolate, and the area in the yellow and the red are when they're more likely towards, less likely towards chocolate and more likely towards the total market.
So I see a lot of dark green right there, kind of afternoon on a Saturday. So it seems like more people purchase chocolates that time of the day and week than other, right?
You're right. And
Great.
don't forget about the green spot on Mondays. We see right there, right after lunchtime, it looks like we've got a dark spot in the green on Mondays. So people are purchasing on Mondays and Saturdays.
So a lot of sales on Monday. I wonder what could be driving that.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's actually superimpose a graph of our discounts on top of this, because what this might be times when we're seeing chocolate sales more discounted. So we're actually just going to superimpose discounts right on top of this. And what you're seeing in the yellow is the higher percent discount towards chocolates. And you see in the rest of the week that purple color. It seems like Mondays stand out on this graph as a time where we're seeing peak discounts, but Saturday, not so much. Let's actually just look at those two together right now. That's because of Mondays. So Monday sales are driven by, look like they're discount driven. Saturdays, not so much. Why this is important is if I'm someone scheduling a vendor day, I'm probably not going to want to pick a Monday to actually feature my product because consumers coming into the store are more likely to expect a discount. I might actually plan this strategically on Saturdays where we're seeing people more likely to buy chocolate in the stores, but not exactly expecting a discount. So this gives us a view of what's going on during the normal week. But how about, are there periods of time where we might see this trend change? We saw Liz highlight a few of those. So let's actually look at discount on a month-by-month basis and see if there are times where we might expect a different discount or consumers might expect a different discount. And so what we're doing here is we're just looking at the percentage discount in the blue bar and then the month-over-month change. The same way we were looking at it before, and we're seeing these big increases right there around looks like in April and in the holiday season. Wonder what holiday that is, where discount jumps up a little bit from what we expect normal. And actually just to zoom in on two of those, it's right around April 420, of course, that we're expecting a big jump. So in 2018, it looks like we're right under 10% and the discount jumps up to 11%. So consumers are expecting a discount in chocolate. In 2019, we're going from right around 9 to 10% all the way up to 15%. So we're seeing that increasing demand. So I've said it a lot already, but I want to change it over to the person who's super excited to talk to you about discounts on 420.
Thanks, Evan. What I'd like to do is use our new holiday bump analysis dashboard to take a closer look at important dates, but we're going to keep on chocolate sales in Washington for now. So the first thing we need to do is identify those dates that we want to analyze. This graph here shows the weekly sales volume for chocolate in Washington over the last year. And I've highlighted two clear anomalies in sales, the week before Christmas and the week that includes 420. While we all know that 420 is the biggest day in cannabis sales, you'll notice that the week before Christmas was actually the biggest week in chocolate sales over the past year.
So chocolate sold more the week before Christmas than even on 420, huh?
That's right. On a week-by-week basis, it looks like the week before Christmas was the biggest day.
Excellent.
Biggest week, excuse me. Now we're looking at the same time period here, but I've added in the purple line for week-over-week growth in chocolate sales, and we can see that the week of 420 has a bigger relative increase over the previous week than the week before Christmas. And so we've identified our two time periods here. Let's do a closer analysis and look at chocolates in Washington, starting with 420. Okay, so here we're looking at edible segment sales in Washington on 420 this year, 2019. And there's a lot going on in this slide, so let me break it down. Our new holiday bump analysis dashboard allows you to select a specific time frame ranging from 1 to 7 days and compare that date to the same previous 4 equivalent time periods. So here we're comparing the sales on 4/20/2019 to the average daily sales on the previous 4 Saturdays. The light blue bar is the sales on 420 and the dark purple bar is the average daily sales over the comparison period. The light blue dots indicate the percent growth between those two periods. So here we can see within the edible category, chocolates were clearly a top performer on 420. They had the second highest total sales, only slightly behind the candy segment, and had the highest percentage growth of any edible segment. They grew by about 180%. Let's take a more detailed look and see which chocolate brands did best on 420. So here we've got a similar graph. We're looking at the top 4 selling chocolate brands on 420, and again, comparing those to the previous 4 Saturdays. I think there are 2 big takeaways here. One is that across the board, all of the top selling chocolate brands had massive growth on 420. The smallest growth percentage on this graph is over 100% growth, meaning that producers should be expecting to at least double their normal sales on 420. And 2, there's a clear standout on the left side of the graph. The brand, the 420 bar, dominated in total sales and had incredibly strong growth, almost 200%.
So people like the 420 bar on 420?
Yeah, they clearly have the perfect name for the holiday. But let's take a look now at how these brands discounted their products for a better picture of 420. Now, as we look at these same top selling chocolate brands, we can see that discounting went up across the board. In fact, it looks like if you're not offering a deal on your products for 420, you may be left behind. However, there are some big differences. We can see that Swift's, the brand with the second most total sales, went all in on huge discounts. They almost 6x their average discount. When you compare that strategy to, say, a brand like Bertaloo, who didn't even double their discount rate, maybe Swift's was leaving some money on the table. Now let's shift our analysis to that other time period I wanted to focus on, the week before Christmas, and see if these same brands were at the top of the chocolate sales charts. Now, as you can see in the legend at the bottom of the graph, we're comparing the average daily sales during the week before Christmas last year to the average daily sales on the previous 4 weeks. One thing that is noticeable right off the bat is that all brands saw great increases in sales, but not the crazy 2 to 3 times growth that occurred on 420. But it's important to keep in mind that this is the average daily sales over an entire week, which goes to show why this week was the biggest for chocolate sales over the last year. And then,
So Cooper, it looks like to me there's not a lot of difference here between the growth rate. So it's not just dominated by one player. It looks like perhaps the Christmas holiday helps out all chocolate brands.
that's right. When we look at, when we look at the top 4 brands, we can see that the 420 bar has been edged out by a brand that wasn't in the top 4 on 420, Hanu, but they're only slightly behind. And like you said, Liz, all these top brands are seeing great growth. So presumably naming your brand after a holiday can pay off in sales. Now on 420, we know that discounts were up, but I would like to take a look at discounting on this week, the week before Christmas. Okay, here we've got a really stark difference from 420. Hanu, the top selling chocolate brand on the week before Christmas, they did not increase their average discount at all. The other top brands had some slight increases, but much smaller than what we saw in 420. Remember how Swift's increased their discounts by nearly 6 times? What this tells me is that the week before Christmas is the most important week of the year for chocolate sales, at least in Washington. Customers are looking to buy chocolates, but they're not necessarily looking for the best deal. So if you want to stand out, maybe a well-timed promotion could make a big impact, but nevertheless, customers are coming into stores looking to buy chocolate, and they may not be looking for the best price they can get. They're looking to spend some money. Okay, guys, I think we've talked enough about chocolate and enough about Christmas and 420, but I'd like to shift focus right here at the end. One thing that makes the cannabis industry unique is how there are format-specific holidays that drive sales. If you think about the floral retail market, for example, there are big days like Valentine's Day and Mother's Day, but they don't really drive sales for a particular type of flower over another. In cannabis, however, we have a day like July 10th, which is also known as Oil Day or Dab Day, that focuses on the concentrate category. So let's take a quick look at Dab Day next. Okay, so here we're looking at discounts again, but I've selected July 10th, 2019 as our holiday, and I'm comparing to the same day of the week, the previous 4. And I'm comparing the discounts here across categories.
Are we still in Washington here, Cooper?
We're still in Washington, yep. There are clear standouts. Concentrates and vapor pens have the large increases in discounting, while all the other categories have no significant changes. But does this type of format-specific promotion translate to an increase in sales? The answer, of course, is yes. When comparing dab day to the previous 4 same days of the week, you can see that almost every category except for vapor pens and concentrates saw a decrease in sales. Concentrates, on the other hand, grew by 38%. This just goes to show that both retailers and producers need to be paying attention to and planning for the unique seasonality and demand of the cannabis market.
Great. Well, thanks for ending us on a high note there, Cooper, both with the discounts and the concentrates. I think it's time to turn it back over to Steve so he can close us out. We will do a question and answer session here in just a little bit, so be sure to put those in.
Right. If you have questions that you haven't put into the Zoom interface, please go ahead and put those in there now. We're going to review them on this side, and Liz is going to read them off, and then the panel is going to jump in and answer them accordingly. I wanted to call out that we do have a series of data nights already planned. This is an opportunity to meet your colleagues in the cannabis space. The data analytics team or one of our colleagues will be giving a full-on presentation on a narrow topic such as this one. It's a chance to meet folks from the Headset team live and in person. The next one we have is December the 3rd in Vancouver. We've got one planned for December the 5th in Coachella. We'll be scheduling more, so please do watch out for those. And then we have been rolling out new online training. Our colleague Joe has done a great job on the retailer segments there. You can go in and get certified on Headset Retailer. We've also just released a training series on Bridge. You're 35 minutes away from having a LinkedIn ready certificate demonstrating your mastery of the Bridge application. So jump into the Headset Highway and get started there. We'll also archive our webinars there on the webinar section of Headset Highway. So watch out for those. And it looks like, Liz, you're ready to take questions.
I am, yeah. One of the first questions we had is, how can I do this kind of analysis? I can't see it in Insights right now. That's true, you can't. These dashboards are not live yet. They'll be coming out by the end of the year for sure. If you're interested in learning more, please reach out to either our customer success team or someone on our sales staff. I think Steve had some contact information up there just a moment ago.
I sure do. I'll pull it back up.
Excellent. So please reach out to them if you're interested in trying it. Another question we had, Cooper, it's for you. They just didn't get to see those DAB day stats. Could you go over one more time the sales increases on DAB day?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Great, thanks, Cooper. Yeah, it looks like someone just kind of missed those statistics is all.
Yeah, that's right. Things go all the way to the end there.
All the way to the
category sales.
Sure. Category sales. Tell me when to stop.
There we
here.
go.
So
There we go. So yeah.
Let me reshare my my slides here. Just a moment. I want to go back into.
And just so everyone knows, these slides will be available for you. You don't have to take screenshots and use up your whole computer memory.
Right. Right. So sharing and sharing. And there we go. Oh, I've got to skip through. Bear with me.
Yeah.
I'm going to answer another question
Go
while
ahead.
Steve gets that all up. One of the other questions we had was, does vapor pen sales dropping from 7/10/2018 to 7/10/2019 confirm that there is a vaporizer scare happening right now? So actually, I don't think we saw vape trends drop from 2018 to 2019. I think maybe that was just a difference in the graph. So we do see vapor pen sales up, especially in July. That was kind of before the all of the vapor pen news broke out. If you are interested in more about vapor pen trends, as they have been slightly trending down over the last couple of weeks, we recently wrote a few blog posts about it, which you can find at headset.io. And those will give you some of the statistics on the vapor pen sales trends there.
And sharing Cooper's slide once more. Fat fingering the sharing here. Bear with me.
Yeah, well, while we get that slide up, I'd be happy to go over it in a little more detail. I think the biggest takeaway is that almost every category saw a decrease in sales in that comparison. So we're comparing July 10th, 2019 to the previous 4 same days of the week, an average of those previous 4 days. Let's just go one more slide there, Steve.
You bet.
There we go. So they're pretty small, but those little blue dots are showing the percentage growth of each category in the comparison date, and the axis for those is on the right side of this graph. So we can see that concentrates grew about 38%. Vape pens, I think, are down in the like 15% range. But then if you'll look at the bottom of the graph, flour had negative growth, pre-rolls had negative growth, edibles had negative growth, tinctures had negative growth. So I think the standout here is that 7/10 or Dab Day is showing a real format specific holiday where only certain types of products are seeing growth in sales while others are falling by the wayside perhaps.
Great. Thanks
Thanks,
for that, Cooper.
Another question we had was talking about the increases in March. So remember, we saw really large increases in March, like 20% or something like that, before we normalized for average daily sales. Then we normalized for average daily sales, but we did still see March be slightly up. I think that there are probably a couple reasons for that. One thing that I want to point out that could be the case is if you pull up a calendar of March, what you see is that March usually enjoys one extra weekend day compared to February. So even when we normalize for the average number of days, March enjoys that extra Friday or that extra Saturday. And Evan, if I remember right, it was Fridays were something like 17% of total sales, and perhaps Saturdays were 15 or 18.
Yeah, it fell down from there.
Absolutely, yeah. So I think that what could be happening there is a little bit of a change in the average daily sales because of those extra weekend days, always something to keep in mind. Another reason it could be happening is that's generally around spring break time. So I haven't done any of this analysis, but what we could do is have a hypothesis that perhaps in Colorado, a lot of people are going for spring break and stopping in on their way to have a way to chill out after they go skiing. So perhaps what we could do is narrow into some of those weeks in March and see if there are particular weeks that see sales spikes. Another thing we could look at is to see if this happens maybe for particular categories or particular segments. I think that's almost all the questions. The last question I had was about our Vancouver data night. So the date for Vancouver, I think, was December 3rd, Steve, is that correct?
Yeah, December the 3rd. We'll be sending out mail on that one.
Great, yeah, and I think that that's all the questions that we had. Yeah, that's it. Well, I guess we had one more. Can you reach out to a sales team manager to check out this data? Yeah, absolutely. Reach out to someone at sales or someone on the customer success team for sure. One last question. I was asked if this will come out in Canada, and yes, it will.
All right. Let's get the current slide back up. We'll share from there. All right. So to learn more about all of what you've heard today, you can reach out to us at sales@headset.io. Our toll-free number is there on the bottom, and by all means, log into us on the web at www.headset.io. Once again, if you registered for this webinar, you will get a copy of these slides and recordings sent out to you shortly. And we appreciate your participation and look forward to seeing you either online or at an upcoming data night. Thanks for playing, everybody.